Indie Beacon Radio with host B Alan Bourgeois. Welcome to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. You can send questions for each show on Twitter using the hashtag IndieBeacon. Now sit back and enjoy learning about our guest for this show.
Hi, and welcome to Indie Beacon Radio. This is your host, B Alan Bourgeois, and today we have with us Kelley Rene, who has written several books. Welcome, Kelley.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Pleasure. So let's start off with what got you into writing.
It's been a lifelong dream of mine. As long as I can remember, I've written stories and wanted to be a writer and just kind of lost that dream in the course of life, I suppose. And now I'm back at it.
Yes, life does happen. So what was the spark that got you back into it?
Honestly, I think just a lot of spare time and assessing my life. I'd raised my children. We moved back to the States, and that burning desire to write never left me. But I think fear and a few other emotions just got in the way, and having a lot of time on my hands caused me to think of, okay, what do I want to do with all this time I have? And I just thought, all right, I'll be a closet writer. And I started writing, and the dream flourished.
Okay, so you used the term closet. So what was it like when you finally came out of the closet and got something published?
I say that mainly because when I first sent my first manuscript to my beta readers, I literally hit send and I ran to my closet and I hung a hid down in the corner and thought, oh my gosh, they're gonna hate it, they're gonna hate it. And lo and behold, they did not hate it. They gave me fabulous feedback, most of which was very practical and positive. And again, that encouraged me to continue on that journey and dream.
Good. So let's start with your first story that you were in the closet for. What's it about, and tell us something about it.
My first story is called Saving Sabina. It's actually based on a true experience when my family and I were in London, excuse me, on vacation. I met this gal in the bathroom of the London Hard Rock Cafe. At the time, I did not realize her plight. I had 5 children that I was tending to, going in and out of the bathroom with the different ones. And each time she kept sparking conversations with me. And I thought, what in the world is she hanging out in the bathroom for? But I did not realize what was going on in her world. And quite frankly, and sadly, it didn't connect until I got back to our hotel and my kids were in bed and I was laying in bed thinking about what was going on. And I began to understand what was happening. That's, I believe, chapter 2 or so in the book. It is fictionalized. The main characters are not me and my family, but it is inspired by this event, meeting this girl.
And so, of course, we're going to have to read the story to find out what happens.
Of course.
Can you give us any hints?
No. That was cool.
All righty. So from there, like you said, you got some good responses, and that encouraged you to write some more. So what was your second book?
My second book is Romanian Runaway. And again, it is inspired by a true event that occurred to me and my husband when we were on a missions trip to Romania. That was something that we did on a regular basis while living in Europe. And I'm still haunted by the words of this little boy who said, clutching me and my husband in his arms, if I had a real mom and dad, I would want them to be you. And although this story, again, is fictionalized, the husband and wife in the story are not intended to be me and my husband, but it is inspired by true events. And it will hopefully open the eyes of readers to the plight of others who perhaps aren't as fortunate as us here in America.
Yes, we do seem to take for granted how lucky we are. Even when we're down and out, we're still pretty lucky compared to some places.
Absolutely.
So you went into a lot of detail about that child's life and the situation around it, or you kind of gave it a more hopeful outlook?
There is a lot of truth thread throughout the story. Well, I don't want to give away the ending, but it's fictionalized. The story is fictionalized, but it is based on the lives of gypsies who live in the sewers of Bucharest.
Okay. And gypsies were kind of, I don't want to say extinguished, but I mean, a lot of foreign countries don't look forward to having gypsies in their midst, do they?
At that time that we visited Romania, the EU was organizing, and if I remember correctly, Romania was trying to join the European Union, and one of the stipulations was they had to clean up the subcultures living in the sewers, in under the city walls, and it caused a stirring because, of course, the people living in the sewers, that's the life that they knew. That's all they wanted. As a matter of fact, the children that we met, although they, of course, welcomed the free food and the visitors who would visit them there in the city of Bucharest, they weren't necessarily looking to change their lifestyle. They had their own family. It wasn't necessarily biological, but they had their own family, and they intended to remain a family in the sewers.
Tough story, I'm sure. Okay, so that's number two. What moved you and what helped create number three?
Camila actually is probably the most true of the three fictionalized accounts of experiences while living in Europe. It was probably the most painful for me to write. It's about a young woman that I happened to meet hosting a yard sale at my home in Wiesbaden, Germany. The story, it is fictionalized, but it almost fully recounts the experience and the plight of this young woman. And I use the word haunt. I'm not sure if that's the right word. I think about her and even pray for her to this day because, again, as a woman, we hear women's rights, we hear equal rights, and all of these terms in America, and I don't mean to disparage those attempts, but there are women living in the world who do not have even the most basic of rights. And in this case, Camila is not her real name, but in this case, her plight to me was so devastating and so sad. I really wanted to give her a voice, and that's why I wrote that story.
You mentioned civil rights for women and stuff, and there's a lot of countries, as you mentioned, that don't give women the basics. So in writing this and giving her story, was there a sub aspect of wanting to encourage people to do more as far as giving rights to women, or just to be aware of?
Well, absolutely. Again, as a woman, I'm aware of these, the need. We all want to be heard. We all want to be treated fairly and equally. And yet I think that sometimes we overlook that there are women in the world who are not, well, I'll put it in my husband's terms. And I've heard him say this on a number of occasions when he's discussing the matter based on his own experience visiting other countries. He has said women have less rights in other countries than the dogs. It goes the man, the male children, the other people in the community, and then somewhere down at the very bottom of the ladder are the female children and the wives. he's able to give better accounts of things that he saw, but Camila for me was a firsthand account of this. And it honestly took me a little while to wrap my mind around it. And again, I wanted to give her a voice. I want others to know the true plight of women in other countries, not just here in America.
Okay. We have just a couple minutes left, so we're going to save the last two books for the next section. In doing Camellia, do you see possibly a sequel to it or a follow-up in some way?
Honestly, I haven't thought of that. Again, that was probably the hardest story of these three experiences to write, simply because it hit to such a deep core within me. As a matter of fact, it's the third of the book, a third in the series, simply because it was very painful for me to get through it. But then even in sharing that book, I have a raw spot in my heart, I guess, for her. And as much as I wanted to give her a voice, it's just been so hard. So I'm not sure about a sequel in the sense that these are a series of stories that occurred while I lived in Europe, and I've kind of moved on. But we'll see. We'll see. I never know. I never know where my imagination will take me as I meet different people and experience different things.
I can fully understand that, because you do travel a great deal. It would be interesting to see if you come up with maybe a short story relating to Camilla, and somewhat of a follow-up or kind of looking back to see where she is now type thing or something. I'm just curious, because so much has changed in the world and since you've been writing the books. I mean, just the short period of time, there's been a lot of changes. So it would be interesting to see whether her or if she ended up with the daughter, where she is, that type of thing. So just food for thought there.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah. So we're at that point. We do need to take a break for our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
All right.
All right. You need anything to drink?
I do. Goodness, I don't know what was in my throat. I was trying to not choke.
All right. Okay, you ready to come back?
I am.
All right.
The 5th annual Authors Marketing Event is coming to Granbury, Texas, July 24th through the 27th. Join us and learn from the professionals how to properly market and sell yourself and your books. Go to ame.authorsmarketingguild.com for all the details. That's ame.authorsmarketingguild.com.
I'm Rox Berkey.
And I'm Charles Brakefield. We're award-winning co-authors Brakefield and Berkey of the Enigma book series. There are 10 books in the series, with book number 11 planned for release in January 2020.
Each story has a central technology focus ranging from identity theft to cryptocurrency and now AI wars. These adult techno thrillers pit cyber good guys against cyber thugs across the darknet.
In our world, technology is today's weapon of choice. You can enjoy ebook format, paper, or Audible. We want your feedback.
Until the next story, thank you.
Thanks.
Well, hello there, my friends. My name is Randy James, independent voiceover producer in the Dallas, Texas area, available to write and record a 30-second commercial, much like the one you're hearing right now. It's a great way to help increase awareness and exposure to your book title. It's easy to do. Simply call me and we'll brainstorm on a few ideas, and in a few hours, I'll whip something up and send you a digital file ready to use. Remember, call or text me, Randy James, at 214-762-1942.
Hello, I am the author and poet Denise Bryson. I am the author of The Things That Cross My Mind, Love's Reality, both in book and audio form. I am also noted as one of the best poets of 2011. I have 2 new projects coming up. One is the Blinky series, where Blinky tells us all about our coins and our bills for our children. I also have a book coming out called Say Ye. It's quotes from Denise Bryson, just inspirational and that will help you along the way.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
And welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. This is your host, B Alan Bourgeois, and we are with Kelley Rene, who's been talking about her books. She has 5 of them currently published, and we know she's got some more on the way. So we left off with Camille, which was your 3rd book. So let's go into the 4th book. What's it about?
In Search of Trinity is a fictional story of a gal who delivers a baby in her bedroom, and the plight and journey that she finds herself on as a result of that. And I actually started this book when I lived in Germany after reading an article about the rise in teenage pregnancies in Germany. And that actually really shocked me because that wasn't something that any of my neighbors had talked about, any of the Germans that I knew. No one was talking about this subject. So when I started the story, it just wasn't working. And we were in the process of moving back to the States. When we arrived in Fort Worth, we were living in a little furnished apartment in downtown Fort Worth, and I was walking along the Trinity, and I'm not exactly sure why, but the story literally just took on a whole new persona, if you will, as I passed this old abandoned building still there on the Trinity River in downtown Fort Worth. And I got so excited, I literally ran back to our apartment and started scribbling out the story. So it did change from the original story, but the idea came from the plight of these teenage girls having babies in Germany.
I'm kind of curious as to why a country like Germany that is pretty modern would go through something like that. Did you ever find out what caused that surge or that increase, or?
Honestly, it was such a taboo subject that no one really wanted to talk about it. They didn't even want to acknowledge that that was true. And honestly, I wouldn't have known about it myself if I hadn't picked up this magazine in the doctor's office and pseudo translated it. So it was very interesting. It wasn't something that anyone talked about, but the article said, what are we going to do about the number of teenage pregnancies that we are now having? And you're right. Germany is such a modern nation, modern thinking. Maybe that's why it shocked me when I realized that that was an issue. I'm not sure.
Interesting. Okay, so it sounds like you've made it back home before you started on your 5th book. Is that about right?
Well, I have a 5th book in the works, and it is kind of an interesting compilation. I've been working on some flash fiction and even short stories. And what began to occur in my short stories was kind of this world building that's I'm not a science fiction or a fantasy author, but the stories began to center around the characters living in a neighborhood. So each chapter is actually a different story, but around the same characters all living on this cul-de-sac. And then of course the very end of that book will culminate in a neighborhood problem that will bring them all together and hopefully resolve some of the personal issues that they're having in each of the short stories.
Do you have a title for it yet?
Right now it's called Melville Court, but I don't know that it will remain that. That's the saved title in my computer.
All righty. And as far as the time frame, how long do you think it'll take for it to get ready for publication?
I'm going to say on that one, probably 9 months, because it's the newest that I've been working. In Search of Trinity, the one where the girl gives birth in her bedroom, will be the next publication. And that one should come out this summer.
Okay. What other ideas do you have working?
Oh, goodness. I have to be careful because I'm getting to the point where my friends who know that I'm a writer and who know that a lot of my inspiration comes from my day-to-day dealings with people I think in some ways they're careful about what they say and do around me because they don't want to be the center of my next story. I say that in jest, obviously, but I do get inspired when I am sitting at the airport waiting for my husband to arrive and I'm just watching people. I'm a people watcher. I love to observe. I'm very interested. Some of our best memories of vacations have been when we just stopped into a cafe or we were somewhere and struck up a conversation with a local, and we learned so much about them and who they are and the workings of their life that I just can't help but be inspired by some of the people that I interact with. So you never know.
No, you don't. And definitely when sitting in an airport, I've done that myself many times where you just watch and wonder what the stories are and you create your own stories with people coming and going and stuff like that. So
Exactly.
yes, you never know where it's coming from. You mentioned you had 5 kids. Are they to the point where you finding yourself with more time to write, or you're still juggling it?
They're grown. As a matter of fact, I'm expecting my first grandbaby after 8 years of marriage. We're finally getting a grandbaby in April, so we're super excited about that. But all 5 of my baby is actually 18 years old. He does still live at home. He's a freshman in college and planning to fly the coop here shortly. But I have more time on my hands simply because I've raised my kids. They've moved on to adulthood. Praise you, Jesus. And I'm moving on to other things, other chapters in my life.
That's great. And it's also nice now that to be able to use different time periods to write and to explore and see what goes on. And now you've got your kids living their lives, and now you've got more story ideas to come from that as well.
They were my original beta readers, and more times than not, they would come back and say, Mom, I know you're writing about me. Stop doing that. Don't put me in your stories. So I try not to put them in my stories. But in the 3 original ones, it was hard not to because they were inspired by true events. So
Yeah, they were young enough that it added some fun to it as well.
exactly. Exactly.
You get to travel a lot. So what caused the traveling?
Well, my husband's an architect. He builds military facilities, and a lot of our travels are simply because we don't want to live apart. So when he's going to a locale where we can accompany him, that's what we tend to do. So we were in Europe for 10 years because he was working there on a couple different projects.
So do you have a country that you're hoping he gets a project at that you can go to?
Well, honestly, we were hoping for Japan. We thought that might work out, but now that we have a grandbaby on the way, I'm not sure. I've mixed feelings about that. So we'll see. We'll see. We're anxiously awaiting her arrival, and my son-in-law is actually Brazilian, born and raised in Brazil. So at the very least, I plan to travel to Brazil with him and my daughter and their newborn so that she can meet her grandparents there.
Great. And right now, probably waiting for the virus to subside in Asia is a good thing too. So
that is a good point. Yes.
Yeah. With all the things that you've done, I mean, you must have journals full of story ideas and real life aspects.
I do. Again, what I try to do is take some profound moment. Perhaps it was just something someone said that resonated with me, and then create a story around that, because I don't want everyone who interacts with me to feel like they're going to be written into a story. Although sometimes I think, hey, that's kind of cool. I wouldn't mind if someone wrote a story about me, although I'm not so sure it would be interesting enough. But I love meeting new people. I love meeting different people. But at the end of the day, what I've learned is no matter what country we're from, no matter what our background, we may have very different cultures and traditions, but at the core, we have a lot of similarities. And I think that's probably been my biggest takeaway from all of the traveling and meeting new people that I've done. We're all human. We all have those basic needs and of being loved and accepted and wanting to have a voice and rights and all of that. And it really is, I just love meeting people and talking to them, hearing their story. So.
Well, that's a perfect spot for us to stop and let our sponsors do their thing, and we'll be right back.
Thank you for watching or listening to Indie Beacon Radio. Our sponsor, IndieLector.store, is the only bookstore that pays authors their fair share for book sales. Help authors to succeed and enjoy a great book by supporting them at IndieLector.store. Enjoy a 10% discount with coupon code SHOPPER20 at IndieLector.store. Coupon valid until December 31st, 2020. That's IndieLector.store, coupon code SHOPPER20.
What started as a love letter to her son has become an international love letter for all parents to their children. Now you can read acclaimed author Shanalee Charbonneau's story to your children. When her son was very sick, she calmed him by singing her own song to him. She turned that song into the book, My Mama Loves Me, I'm Her Little Boy. She wrote 3 more magical books for all parents and kids 6 and under. Available at Indie Lector, Amazon, and all local and national outlets.
We Fiction is a fun, fast-paced writing contest for any author team to create a book based on what readers submit for plot, characters, locations, and even plot twists. Learn more about this unique contest at wefiction.dearindie.org.
Authors Marketing Guild is a membership-owned organization designed to help authors succeed and learn how to better market and sell themselves and their books. Join us at authorsmarketingguild.com and receive so many benefits you'll wonder why you didn't join sooner. That's authorsmarketingguild.com.
Welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. Don't forget to like us, follow us, or subscribe to one of our many channels. Now, here is your host for today's show.
And welcome back to Indie Beacon Radio. This is your host, B Alan Bourgeois, and we have Kelley Rene with us. And Kelley, you've got all these books that you've got published, plus the ones that you're working on in the background and soon to be released. So how can people find you and connect with you and all that fun stuff?
Well, my handler on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and even Facebook is at the letter I, the letter M, Kelley Rene with 4 E's. And I love to connect with my readers. I want to hear what they think. Even if they didn't like it, I want to hear what they didn't like about the stories. I think that's probably the most exciting part for me when I do release a story, is hearing how it impacted someone else, what they thought of it, how it resonated with them, and hopefully it encouraged them. And if not, why didn't it, and how can I improve in that area?
And of course, your books are available at all the typical outlets, Amazon and all those. Is there a website that they can purchase directly from you, or to submit ideas or anything of that nature?
Well, I'd love to hear from them on my website. I also blog about my dog and inspiration to my stories and just whatever else is going on in my life. So that would be kelleyrene.com, and they can email me at kelly@kelleyrene.com too. I love to receive emails. I try to respond to every single one of them. So if they have a question, I'm on Goodreads, of course, Amazon. So I hope that they'll reach out.
Okay. And of course, we always ask our authors, is there a piece of information or wisdom that you want to share to help them with the writing career that they may want to get into?
Absolutely. Now that I look back, I realize how much I allowed fear to prevent me from writing. The fear of what other people would think, the fear of failing, the fear of, just making a mess of it. And I'm absolutely 100% sure that I have done that at some time. But I started hearing people say, you can't edit what you don't write. And that is absolutely 100% true. If you have a story burning inside of you, get the words down on paper. It may be an absolute mess, but any messes can be cleaned up and fixed and improved. So put those words down on paper and do it. Don't let fear stop you from getting your message out and being heard.
But it sounds like you have reached a point that I have, which you realize that no matter what you write, you're always going to have your haters and your lovers and all that stuff. So that's why that fear is no longer a issue for you, and you're able to get out there and just put it out there.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Good. Well, I want to thank you very much for being with us, and we wish you the best of luck.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's been a joy to be here, Alan. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Indie Beacon Radio, where creative souls can find help in marketing their creations. To learn more about Indie Beacon services, to be a guest on the show, or to advertise on our show, please visit our website.
Indie Beacon Radio with hostess Denise Bryson. Indie Beacon Radio is produced by B Alan Bourgeois for Authors Marketing Guild LLC, copyright 2020. Voiceover by Randy James, Lydia Bello, and B Alan Bourgeois. To be a sponsor of the show or for more information, please email us at info@authorsmarketingguild.com. To be interviewed for the show, please complete the form at radio.authorsmarketingguild.com. Music Always Rejoice by Ramcord